What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the Gangsta Grillz mixtape by Bun B and the Middle Fingers. Basically, this project is called Gangsta Grillz The Legend Series Volume 1 or something of that relative pitch, and it came out somewhere in 2004. Now, I'm kind of assuming that I want to say this particular mixtape, Gangsta Grillz The Legends Volume 1, particularly came out in like the summer of 2004. The articles that I have listed about this don't really list like the release date as to when this particular came out. Like Spotify says that this particular product came out in 2006. I think it was eventually packaged as like an album later on as far as that pitch kind of went. Kind of became like a pseudo album slash like like a street album, some pitches like that. So I do think you can pick this up for retail if you look for it on Amazon or eBay, pitches like that. I'd say it's a pretty good project here. This definitely a very inspired Bun B around the times of when Pimp C was in prison as far as that pitch can happen. He was on his campaign to get him out, and Pimp C did not get released until like the second to last day of 2005. I'd say it was a pretty good pitch just to see what Bun B was up to on his solo tip, because this is before he dropped like a solo album. But this is a Gangsta Grillz statement. It's a pretty damn good one, I'd have to say. I definitely appreciate this one more so than for the most part when I think of Gangsta Grillz tapes. Not like they're particularly bad or pitches like that, but mixtapes from the 2000s tended to have less original material as far as that pitch can go, unless you had someone like Lil Wayne or a lyricist that really went in. It's just kind of the concept that the new stuff in terms of this, but I do like Gangsta Grillz tapes when they pick the right beats and pitches like that. This is pretty damn near like if this would have been 2004 in this particular project when I would have reviewed, like if I would have reviewed this back in 2004, this would probably get like a 10 out of 10 because it's just that good. It's packed to the gills, filled with good hits on here. There's some new stuff. There's some relative new stuff on here, and Bun B is a pretty competent lyricist. So some good concepts here. Plus, I like these Middle Fingers cats. They're like associates of Bun B. Haven't really seen them too many times after this particular product, but I did like the concept of getting some of them on here at least when they're with Bun B. I feel like the song, there's at least one freestyle they try to do by themselves. That's one of the two songs on here that I don't recommend. But yeah, out of 19 songs in this particular mixtape, there's really only two songs I don't recommend on here. So there's a number of variations about this mixtape. I tried downloading the mixtape and I wound up getting like the chopped and screwed edition. I couldn't find the standard edition of this particular mixtape. It's kind of tricky to find as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. It's an older mixtape. It's 20 years old at this particular pitch, but I would have to say it's a little bit trickier to find. It is on YouTube, and that's how I'm reviewing it. But I just would have to say in terms of like a regular download, I was only able to find the chopped and screwed edition. Now there's a number of editions kind of floating around. Some variations say that there's 22 songs, some say there's 24, some say there's 26 or 27. I'm reviewing the one that's 24 songs, where the last song is like Stomp with Young Buck, which is kind of interesting that they threw a song with Young Buck on there that doesn't have Bun B on there at all, but that's the relative pitch behind it. And then after that, there's like a song that's like an outro, so it's kind of the concept. So there's 24 or 25 songs, I'd have to say. There might be some bonus renditions that have like 26 or 27 songs, but I know there's at least a chopped and screwed version of this particular mixtape floating around. But I would have to say this is a pretty quality mixtape here. The thing about this particular project is just the fact that it's kind of localized. It had the same particular, the original songs that Bun B's on, that's not freestyles to other instrumentals, definitely remind me of like some local kind of Southern Fried Texas type fare for like some night scents. It's perfect for like making Taco Bell runs and KFC runs, pitches like that as far as that particular kind of goes. Just getting a bunch of Swisher Sweets and some of that type fare, just some great smokage and just relative summer malaise as far as that pitch kind of happens. If you like songs like Slow Motion by Juvenile, some of those just lazy summer day type pitches, just pitch of like 6 o'clock p.m. as the sun's starting to set, just some golden type evenings pitches like that. It's really getting some swishers, some good food and kicking back. This is some good stuff here. It's just kind of a lot of this particular product just reminds me of a lot more evening type fare, not so much like pitch of the day type summer where it's like noon and 1 o'clock where it's like 95, 98 degrees outside, but just more of like 6:37. It's like the sun's starting to set, just getting some snackage and just getting ready to smoke with your pals and like the pitch at night as far as that kind of goes. There are some decent nightclub type songs on here for like a relative pitch. They're not as full blown tore up as like things like when you think of Jeezy's Trap or Die from 2005 off his Thug Motivation 101 or some of those type pitches. The song Over Here is on here, and that's definitely one of the more litty songs. But there are some ones on here like, there's a couple songs on here like Don't Make Me freestyle and then the No More Drama freestyle that are both pretty much like relative, just modest kind of turn up type songs that kind of have that relative pitch of like being nightclub songs, but they're just kind of early bird type ones that just kind of feel like more of like 7 out of 10 type energy in terms of like the pitch. Not the craziest songs out the particular product, but I mean for 2004 they were just kind of modest. I think if they had not been modest in energy, they probably would have wound up on an album in the first place. So just the fact that you're getting like 7 out of 10 energy songs on like a mixtape is pretty good as far as that pitch goes, because it probably would have wound up being for retail or something if it had been 10 out of 10 sort of stuff that belongs on an album. But it's a relative good pitch. So I'm just going to cut to the chase with this particular mixtape as far as that kind of goes. There's not really singles on here. This is an older mixtape from 2004, I'd have to say. So as far as that kind of goes, like I was saying, there's basically 20, there's 24 songs in this particular mixtape, minus like 4 skits and an outro that I don't recommend. I do recommend the intro of this particular project. The intro is pretty cool, but I didn't recommend the outro as much. I'd have to say is that narrows it down to 19 songs, and out of those 19 songs that are left over, I wound up recommending 17, which is a pretty good pitch. Like I said, if this had been 2004 and the songs that are on other projects had been on this particular project are exclusive to it, it would have gotten like a 10 out of 10. But basically, the only 2 songs I don't recommend in some fashion would just be the Jesus Walks freestyle with Paul Wall, and then the Middle Fingers freestyle, which is kind of an East Coast type beat that I just didn't appreciate as much. It's not so much a problem with East Coast productions as much as this was just the Middle Fingers freestyle that was only with Middle Fingers. This particular instrumental was just not that really compelling or just much of one that really had much of a thrive to really listen to some lyricism on it. I'd say this really did not showcase them in like the proper light, I'd have to say. But for the most part, this mixtape is going to get a pretty high score. So to basically say 17 songs out of 19 I recommend on here, despite the fact that a lot of these are kind of remixes and just freestyles to particular instrumentals. The remixes and freestyles are not as much of a deal, but there are 4 songs out of the 19 on here that are songs that were on other projects. Just particular folks that Bun B was collaborating with around that time. Jeezy's Over Here from his 2000, Young Jeezy's collaboration with Bun B Over Here from his 2004 mixtape is on this particular project, but I would just recommend it on Jeezy's particular mixtape from 2004. You can find my review of that, and I think it's called like The Streets is Watching or something like that. You can find that in the Jeezy Reviews playlist. Pretty good one. Definitely recommend it, but it is on this particular album if you want that one. Slim Thug's Three Kings from his album Already Platinum is on this particular album. Lil Boozy and Webby's album song Show You Tattoos from their 2004 album is on this particular album. And then for some reason, Young Buck Stomp, his hit song from his 2004 album Straight Out of Cashville's on here. So those 4 songs can be found on other projects. So that narrows it down to 13 out of 19 that are just new songs or just something that's not to be found elsewhere that I recommend off this particular project. Now, that does not count the fact that some of these are freestyles to other instrumentals and remixes of songs that Bun B was just on around that particular time. But I would have to say that 13 out of 19 is still pretty good. So that's a pretty good concept, kind of get that. So I'm going to give this mixtape, just with all things considered, at least chalking up the songs that are to be found elsewhere in addition to all the hits that I do recommend that we're going to get to in a moment. I would have to say I'm going to give this mixtape like an 8.75 out of 10. Once again, I would give it like a 10 out of 10 if some of these songs would have been more exclusive. But I definitely think an 8.75 for a mixtape that doesn't really have as much full-blown new songs for the most part. When it comes to like mixtapes from like 2011, 2013, 2015, some of those tend to get higher scores, but this is pretty good for like a 2004 type one. Just being able to say like Jeezy's Trap or Die and Streets is Watching, some of those type mixtapes from 2004, 2005, a lot of those I didn't wind up giving like an 8, 9, 10 out of 10. So some of those, even though they're Gangsta Grillz and pitches like that, some of these type ones just don't always get like 10s out of 10 just because they don't really pile on like the new content, just because they try to show off their lyricism like folks like Lil Wayne and T.I. and some of those type folks kind of do. But it's just kind of the concept. This is a good mixtape. It's definitely a bolster type one if you can find it. I'm going to talk about some of these. So the 6 songs I recommend that are new songs, or at least relatively new, that I just have not commonly heard just within the template of it, I'd have to say would be Texas, You Ain't Know, Is That Your Chick, It Ain't Me, Spiders, and Intro. It's kind of the concept about it. And the 7 songs I recommend that are either remixes or freestyles to other songs like Lil Wayne style would be Free Pimp C, Kiss of Death freestyle, Don't Make Me freestyle, Slow Motion remix, On Fire freestyle, What You Gon' Do remix, and then No More Drama freestyle. That's kind of the thing about it. So talk about some of these new ones. Like Texas is a pretty nice one. It's like a jittery kind of night craze of a song. I'd have to say it's like similar to Jeezy's Trap or Die. I would definitely feel like just a 2004 rendition of that. It's definitely some local activity for some late fare. I would definitely have to say, and it's just good for like some Taco Bell runs, Popeyes runs, some of those type pitches. So I definitely like some of that Southern fried type fare to kind of get here. These are some clever type ones to kind of get just within a localized type sense. This is a very local type mixtape to kind of get here just within that residential type fare. Just good for some snackage pitches like that. Just localized type stuff, just picking up swishers just around the neighborhood kind of residential type fare, just within a pretty relatively laid back type sense. Do appreciate the fare behind it. Just some good night creeping pitches like that. And a lot of these are just great smokish type songs. You Ain't Know is another nice one. This is like a good 1-2 punch with Texas, I'd have to say. It's another creeping kind of night activity of a song, I'd have to say. good pairing with Texas, like I was saying. This is like some local snackage and late night swishers type fare, I'd have to say in particular. These are just some good 1-2 punches. And the thing about this particular mixtape is I have to kind of do this just more off of memory, just because the ads are on this particular one. I could not find this mixtape in terms of like a download, so I just would have to say I'm having to listen to it to YouTube. And basically every other song, if you listen to it for more than too long, you have to listen to ads. This would be like this would wind up being like a really lengthy review for me to edit, so I'm just going to go off of memory with this. But there are some nice ones. Those are like a good 1-2 punch for some smokage. Is That Your Chick with T.I. is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a pimpish kind of smooth jive of a song, I'd have to say. This one's very similar to T.I.'s Let's Get Away. I would definitely feel like just a real breezy type one. It's like some summer breeze kind of jazzy fade type tunes to kind of get here. Basically, just Bun B's rendition of a pimpish type song like Let's Get Away by T.I. I'd say a pretty good concept for that. Just some real kind of just mellow kind of summer evenings, this relative kickback and just smooth type vocals on there. Good hook on there. It Ain't Me is a pretty nice one. This has Slim Thug on there and some folks like that. This is like an out in the summer day type. This is an out in the summer day wind type hop and bop type song to kind of get in particular. This is definitely one more in like the pitch of day, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m. type stuff. This would be an uptown kind of hot day bounce of a song, I'd have to say, and it's like a good get errands done and kind of situate type song to get to. Just get some priorities straight, and as far as that pitch kind of goes, get your ducks in a row, get some bills paid, some pitches like that. Just standard day activity, just the standard fare. I mean, this can also be a smokish type one, but this has a little bit more bustle towards it than some of the other songs off this particular mixtape. I'd have to say is just a good concept to kind of get some of that particular summer fare. Real nice, just hot day type fare, like typical kind of Texas fanfare, to something that you would expect out of Slim Thug, Paul Wall, some of those type folks. But Bun B has a pretty good rendition of it. Just a nice bounce of a song, just not necessarily one that's kind of commonly found. These are some exclusive songs here, I'd have to say, so it's a good concept. Spiders is a pretty nice one. This real glitzy type one. I want to say I've heard this beat somewhere else. I don't know if this was a Bun B original type one. I might have said that this might have been like a Manny Fresh song or like a BG song, something from Cash Money. I'm not really sure where I've heard this song, but I think I've heard this production before. But I couldn't figure out where it's from, so I just look after this like a glitzy kind of turn up of a song. I'd have to say it feels great for like Fast and Furious soundtrack. I would have to say something like that, something real car centric, one of those type pitches. It's like a good 2000s vehicle pull up type song to kind of get here. This is, I mean, for 2004, this is good for some pull up type music, I'd have to say. And this is like a definitely good 2000s vehicle pull up gem, I'd have to say. And this is a pretty speedy song, so it's definitely some quick times. Kind of reminds me of like Ludacris's, kind of reminds me of Ludacris's Act a Fool, I'd have to say in particular as far as the pitch goes, but it is a nice one. Intro's a pretty nice one. Do appreciate the intro on here. I was surprised by that just within the relative pitch, but I'm glad I listened to it because this is a pretty nice one. It's like a Jiri kind of late day festivity hype of a song. It's like a Jiri kind of late day festivity of a song. I'd have to say this is a pretty hype and lyrical song to kind of give some excitement. I would have to say in particular, Bun B's pretty hype on this particular song, so I like the energy of this particular one. This is like a good local Kickstarter song, I'd have to say, and it's a pretty hot song. So this is some summer energy just within a more evening type sense. Just being able to say this one goes well with Texas, and you ain't know some of those type pitches. Just get the thing started as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just some good local residentialized type activity, kind of get things started and get ready to have like a house party, some kickoffs, some pitches like that. Just have some shindigs and get ready to turn up for like the evening as far as that kind of goes, even if it is just smoking a whole bunch. I'd have to say some good concepts there. But in terms of like some of the songs that are remixes and freestyles, I'd have to say Free Pimp C is just a freestyle to CR's Goodies. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that. A song I don't remember as much as like the Kiss of Death freestyle. Apparently this was a song off of Jadakiss' album. It's been a while since I listened to that one in particular, but basically the Kiss of Death freestyle is like a sloppy kind of gnarled get stuck type song, I would have to say, and it's just a hell of swishers type song to really smoke to. Pretty nice one to kind of get. It's not a common song to really freestyle to. I'd have to say in particular it was a pretty nice concept to get that one. Had me curious about that particular affability of that particular song. Don't Make Me freestyle is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a modest kind of nightclub turn up, like I was saying before, and this is like a local kind of get night started, I had to say. So some of these type ones, like I was saying with the 7 out of 10 and energy, some of these type ones are just kind of modest type ones that kind of mild kickoffs and just pitches like that, get some smokage in your system, just kind of turn up for the night, some of those type fares. And then another one like Don't Make Me freestyle would be No More Drama, which is basically another vanilla kind of Texas fried get started with the night type song, I'd have to say in particular. This is some pretty good club kickoff. These two songs, Don't Make Me freestyle and No More Drama, would be more like 6:45, 7:30 p.m. type kickoff as far as that pitching goes. If nightclubs kind of play some mixtape type songs, but once again, this mixtape is kind of tough to track down, but it is worth the purchase. If you do have to purchase this particular one, if you can't find it on like the Internet Archive and pitches like that, it's really not too much of a deal to pay like $8 or $9 for this particular album, because it does have some gems on there. It has enough to be able to say this is a pretty quality Gangsta Grillz tape. This is one that's kind of ahead of the pack in terms of the effort that was put into it and just the overall appeal. Bun B and the middle finger Fingers do have some good Bun B and the Middle Fingers do have some good lyricism on here as far as that pitch can happens with it. There are some extra guests on here. You'll find that Chameleonaire is on one of these songs. That's a freestyle on here. Ti's on one of these songs. I want to say Slim Thug might be on here a couple times. He's on at least Three Kings and then one other one, which I think is It Ain't Me. So there are some good pitches for that. Some decent kind of Southern cats on here for like some backup guests. In addition to the fact that these Bun B and Middle Fingers team ups are pretty good. Now they're not the Middle Fingers are not on every single song, but the ones that they are on with Bun B for the most part hit home for a lot of these. A lot of these are just really excellent, I'd have to say. It's really only, like I said, there's only real 2 songs I don't recommend in some fashion out of everything on this particular tape. So that's just kind of the concept. So Middle Fingers on their own, they just didn't, the Middle Fingers freestyle on their own, they just didn't really stack up with like the production choice that they chose for that particular one. But other than that, this is a pretty quality mixtape, just full blown, I had to say. So 8.75 score. The Jesus Walks one was kind of a nice one. That was not a bad song as full blown, I'd have to say. It was just kind of the concept that I just didn't. That one was a lot more religious than like the connotation behind it. It was just a little bit preachy, it's just a little bit preachy within the atmosphere of it. I don't remember if Kanye West's variation of that song was as preachy, but it's just kind of the concept just felt a little bit more preachy than the aspect behind it. But the social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I'm going to give the social score like a 9.5 out of 10. The reason why it's not going to get a full blown 10 out of 10 is there's a lot of good bops on here. There's definitely some excellent residential type fare for Taco Bell runs, Popeyes runs, some pitches like that. Just getting some good snackage and smokage on as far as that particular pitch can have. It's just some good evening type fare and some good bustling type energy, some good mild party starters and pitches like that, some good nightclub just bounce within a relative sense, just within a relative modest sense, but the energy is just affable. The lyricism's on here, and Middle Fingers and Bun B do a great job of really conveying that energy and just nailing it. So the only reason why this project wouldn't get a 10 out of 10 in terms of the social score is just because it's kind of tough to track down as far as that pitch can happens with it. I would have to say, I mean, I think you can purchase it off of Amazon or pitches like that. I'd have to say, so if you do want, I mean, like I said, it's not that big a deal to pay like the 8, 9, 10, 11 bucks to kind of get this particular product. But if you are just looking for a download, it's not really as readily available. I think you can get the chopped and screwed edition, but I think this is like the better version of it, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept, but you might have to pay some bucks to kind of get it. It's just kind of the concept. But 9.5 social, just because it's kind of tough to track down. If it's not available on Amazon pitches like that, I'm not even really sure how to get a hold of it. It's kind of a tricky type one. It is on YouTube, but I'd have to say I haven't been able to find it in terms like a regular free download. But like I said, it might be on Amazon pitches like that if you want to pay the bucks. But that's just kind of the thing. So in terms of the future, like Bun B has been putting out like these Trill Static albums as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. That's what he's been up to in recent times. He's done like 3 or 4 of those as far as that pitch is going to happen. The last album that I know that he put out was Return to the Trill in 2018 in terms of like his solo type of fare. He does have a number of projects. I'm going to get to some more of these. This was a surprisingly fun Gangsta Grillz, I'd have to say, and it is worth the concept of purchasing as far as that particular kind of goes, despite the fact that the free download might be out of the question. I'd say this is still a worthwhile project and definitely worth the investment if you do find it and manage to track it down. I'd have to say, so I do recommend this project rather quite a bit, I'd have to say.